Alright, this is a 2001 Dodge truck with a bad heater core, and basically it runs off those two lines back in there, and those have radiator fluid in them that come off your engine. One goes up to the front and one goes to the other side of the engine. This is a V8, and we got to disconnect those lines. But the first thing we need to do is drain some radiator fluid out, because they'll be full of water and you won't be able to disconnect them. The other thing I'm going to do is disconnect the battery, because there's electrical inside this dash, and one of them on this truck is a airbag, and I don't want that blowing up in my face if I hit the wrong wire or something. The other thing that I've seen in a couple other videos is underneath the dash there's a couple clips, bolts that hold this dash on right here. So that means I have to disconnect these panels off, and this panel's probably clipped on, and then there's some bolts right here, and we're going to disconnect all those. So I'll return once I get all that stuff loose. Okay, I wanted to show you a couple things. This is how long this truck has been running with a bad heater core. There is no water in the radiator and no water in the reservoir. So I probably don't even need to drain the radiator, but it's probably a good thing that I did this heater core, because probably looking to burn up this engine if we hadn't topped this fluid off or checked the heater core. The radiator drain plug is right there. You just loosen that and get a bucket or something and let the fluid, try to capture that fluid. But again, there's not much fluid in there because all the water has been going out the heater core and burning up. Alright, I'm back to the floor trim. There's 4 screws here. Just unscrew those. I've already done that. Take that off. Then there's the kick panel, and they just pull off. You just pull them towards you, and then it's hooked. There's a little hook on that one, so you got to be careful not to bust that off. And that's that side. I'm going to go do the other side. Okay, this is the passenger side. It's easier to see, and this is what we're going for, is this bolt, and that's what holds the bottom of the dash on. Now, I put a cap on this dash. This is not the original dash cover, and when I took this off, I do not remember seeing the heater core. So I may take this cap off by taking off this bezel, and it just snaps off, and then it's really kind of hard to get this off. There's some bolts holding it, and we'll get that off if we need to, but I'm going to try just to do those bolts that I showed you next. Okay, I wanted to show you something else. This is pretty far down in there, and I have a long extension, and I think that's a number 8 socket on there, which is these bolts. They're pretty long. But if you have 2 sets of tools or extensions, then that gives you more room to turn your tool and unscrew those out. Otherwise, you're down there close to the window, and it's real hard to unscrew those. These tools are at AutoZone. They cost about 30 bucks a set, and I think they were on sale for $20, and it's a great tool set. It has both deep well and short well, metric and standard, and the drives, these ratchets, are actually Craftsman, because the ones that came in that tool set, both of them broke, the little ratchet, but I had these sets from other sets. They work great. Also, this truck, you can't see it, but it's actually a low mileage. It has 90,000 miles, 2001, but that makes it about 12 years old, and that heater core, basically when you're driving, it just fogs up the whole window, and it smells like radiator fluid, and that's the whole reason I'm doing this, because I knew as soon as I got it from the person that I'm working on it for that the heater core was bad, and they didn't even know it. Okay, this is a number 13 right here socket, and basically I had to get a bigger tool, and we're undoing this one on this side, and then if you can see that one on the other side, and we're going to loosen that one and see if this comes loose. I've decided to try to take off this large panel next, try to drop that steering column down, and there are some star drivers, and luckily I have a very nice star driver. This is a T20, and you just use a wrench on there. It would be nice if they just be consistent with the screws. The other screws that came out of the center were just standard Phillips, and I've taken those out of those center pieces, and that did nothing. So we'll continue on. There are two screws, two nuts that are holding this dash in, and there's one on each side, and I've taken those both loose, and it looks like that is the only thing holding this dash in. The whole dash is loose. So we have the steering column holding it in, and these two nuts on the side, and these top screws what's holding this dash in. So we're going to be very careful. The other thing I'm going to do is put the shifter down and drive and move it out of the way, and we'll see if we can fold that dash down enough. The dash is very loose, and I can now see the heater core in there, but I think I have to remove this box. So I'm going to remove this box, see if there's some screws under there, and we'll check back in. I have found 4 screws holding this in, and that's those two and this on the side. So I think if we loosen those two, this will come loose enough to let this dash slip forward. In fact, I'm just going to try to loosen those and not take them out. Okay, recap on this. These 2 bolts, as soon as I let them go, center console, the whole dash fell. So now it's totally loose. And also, just to show you, if you can see here, I've tried to be very careful about my bolts. So I know everything that goes back. I'm keeping them organized under the seat. And so we'll be able to get this loose. Now this dash is totally loose. So to recap this, we have the 2 bolts in the center. We have the 2 bolts on the sides. And we have the 2 bolts holding the steering column, and the 5 bolts that were up here. That's all that's holding this dash together. That should be enough to do all I need to do. There are a couple of screws right there holding that in. I want to take a hacksaw and cut these pipes off so I can pull them out through the other side. I'm not going to try to get those hoses loose. I'm going to take the whole pipe out with it. So I'm going to unscrew those, and then I'll show you the hacksaw in, and I'll pull them out, and then we'll lift this up and out of there. I wanted to show you something very important. There was a ground strap. You can't hardly see it, but that ground strap was screwed to this clamp that held that on. It's very important that you don't forget to put that ground clamp back on there, because that's what keeps your car grounded and safe and keep you from having fires under your dash. That's all the radiator fluid I got out of that radiator. That's probably another gallon or 2 shy of what it needs to be. I'm going to close that up. I'm going to go get a towel and a hacksaw, and I'll be right back. I was able to get the hacksaw in there no problem. Just reached it in there. Now that's loose. Hopefully I'll be able to pull the hose and everything out just to show you. You can basically get this hacksaw down in there and cut those pipes off. Not a very good view of it, but anyway, just get your hacksaw down in there, cut those pipes loose, and then you'll be able to pull them through the firewall and get those hoses attached, disconnected easier. There you have it. Both of them are loose. I'm We'll try to pull those through the firewall. See if we can jiggle those out of there. I cannot see up in here. I'm just trying to port the camera. There's another clip holding the bracket to the firewall, so I got to get that one loose. It's probably just Phillips. I have to admit, that was probably the hardest screw to get out of the whole project. And that, again, I cannot see it. I had to pull the dash as hard as I could and squeeze in here, look with one eye, and find it and unscrew it. With some wiggling, turning, these hoses are real flexible. Spin them around. It took me about 30 seconds to get those out. And now I can disconnect them out here, and then I'll feed the new one through there and hook them up. Should be a little easier than trying to disconnect those up underneath the dash. Next thing I did was take my screwdriver, pry up on that to get that started, and we can get that heater core out of there now. That's the heater core. That's the junk that's leaking out of the bottom. Looks like it's got a pretty good leak there at the top. So that's the old one. And that's out of the hole. And we'll see if we can look down in there, dry that up any. It's going to dry anyways. Heat will dry it. But we'll get the new one in there, and I'll show you that. It's taken about an hour. I started at 9. It's about 10 o'clock, so that wasn't too bad. An hour to take all this apart. You will probably need 2 people to get this in here, because I cannot do it by myself. I can hold this back. Obviously, I don't have enough room here. Anyway, if you had 2 people, one person could hold this back, and I could use 2 hands to twist those lines. They are, unlike the original, they swivel to feed that down in there. But that's very hard to do with one person. I want to keep trying. Okay, I've really jacked this dash way up in the air. Explain to me how to get that in there. I have no clue, but I'm going to keep trying, and once I figure it out, I'll video it so you can not have all my frustrations. It'll be easier for you once I figure it out. This is a 2001 Dodge, and I have tried everything to get that heater core to go back down in there. I even went on YouTube and looked at some other videos, but something's different about this 01 Dodge, and I cannot get these lines under this pad. So what I'm going to do next is take a razor blade and cut this pad on both sides of the strip so I can push that down and hopefully get those hoses up underneath there. Okay, I've tried to cut this foam pad out of the way so I would have access to slide those tubes in through those holes, but it is on an 01 physically impossible to feed that heater core down in there with these hoses. I've tried 30 minutes, 40 minutes, all different positions, just like the guy on YouTube, but on this model it does not work like that. So what I'm going to do is there's 2 screws holding this box on the inside of the firewall. I'm going to loosen those, see if I can pull this thing back a little bit. That's what an hour looks like. I think I've got it started in there. I was able to cut this. I had to loosen all the bolts that hold this box to the back of the engine. I went on YouTube and the guy said to disconnect this computer, disconnect the bolts. There's 3, 4 of them under this side. And then there's a couple that he showed me that were up there, and one right there, and a ground screw. So there's a couple up underneath there. And now I think I've got that in there so I can swivel it just like the other guy said on the picture. But that would not work on this model. You had to disconnect this box and cut that foam to get that in there. And I had to get it not facing backwards, but left to right, and turn those things. So now I'm going to try to turn them and get them in the hole, see if I can get it in all the way. The heater core slipped all the way down in there. I swiveled the tubes over like you're supposed to go. Then I pressed the box back into position. So it's installed. Now we're going to go reverse, put all of our screws back together. I started at 9, it's 11:15, so it took 2 hours. It took an hour to get this apart, and it took 2 hours to get this in because I didn't know that I had to remove this box, and I kept trying to jiggle it. It just would not go. So again, I had to cut this pad loose, flip it up, give me room, and then I had to pull this whole box back. And I did not disconnect the AC lines. I just needed, you know, an inch and a half to pull this back so it would clear the metal stuff inside the dash. I've hooked up the 4 bolts. They were on this firewall. One was behind this computer. I watched another video on YouTube, and they said you had to take that off. There was 1 bolt there. There's 1 bolt here. There's 1 bolt down. It's a nut, not a bolt. And there's a nut below the canister there for your air compressor. And then there's 1 on the firewall back, right there above the trans dipstick on the firewall. So you got to tighten all those back down. It took like 5 minutes to tighten all those back up. And then we're going to move back to the inside of the dash and hook everything of that back up. And we still have our 2 hoses to hook up when we're finished. I have the heater core back together. I have the ground strap back on, the 2 nuts. I've decided to cut that plastic all the way away because I didn't want it touching. That's going to be hot water from the engine. So I didn't want that touching and flapping down and maybe melting that plastic. So I just cut it loose. So now the next thing I got left is to push the dash back up against it and hook everything up. I got some help. Took 2 people to hold the dash up. And basically we got the screw started. We got these screws started. There's 2 there, 1 on each side, and the steering wheel. We'll put these 3 screws back on, put that cover on, put the kick panels on. These kick panels just snap back in place. Then there's 4 screws, those go back on. I vacuumed it up to get all the dirt out of there. And that's basically the dash reinstalled with the heater core installed. And what we have left is to hook up the battery, hook up these 2 hoses, and fill the radiator. That's it. Okay, the radiator's full. We got those hoses. You cannot see them because of the light, but they're hooked up. Got the battery hooked up. So now we're going to start the engine, let the coolant go into the system, and then we'll top this off. After it cools, we'll open this up. Hopefully it'll suck that out, and we'll top it off one more time, and that should be it if nothing leaks. And there you have it, 2001 heater core assembly. Okay, this is the last clip. Everything's back together. Temperature is okay. I'm going to check the radiator fluid a couple times here tomorrow. And that's 90,000 miles, 2001 Dodge Ram V8 heater core. Everything put back together. And it took 1 hour to get the heater core out, and it took nearly 4 hours because it took almost 2 or 3 hours to get that heater core part back in that little box, and then it took another hour to put all this dash back together. There you have it. One more thing that got messed up during reassembly is the shift lever, because I had put it in park. So this little bracket had popped out. So I put this bracket, snapped it back in there, and then turned this wheel to adjust it. So it was back in park on park. And so now when you shift it, it goes. And there you have it. That's the last thing.